when you work on a movie and you're intimately involved in the process of making it, when you finally saw it for the first time completed, did anything about it surprise you?
A couple things. One, I was surprised how smoothly it blends the character drama and the sci-fi stories. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I was surprised at the range and power of the film's ambiguity.
Mm-hmm. You've seen this in the company of festival audiences as well, I'm sure.
Yes, I saw it. I saw it at Sundance. Correct.
So, what kind of reaction did you gauge from the audience? What did they want to know from you? What were they most curious about with the film?
Well, that's a good question. I saw it. I've only seen it with festival audiences once, but I have participated in a number of Q&As. So, in answering your question, I'll draw from that experience as well. They ask a lot about. I want to be careful in my answers not to reveal any spoilers, but they ask about what happens after the film ends. They ask about some of the motivations of the characters. They ask about some of the moments that Britt and I have and what we were thinking and what we think the characters were thinking and feeling. So that sort of thing.
Yeah. And isn't that wonderful, though? I mean, it's wonderful that there's a movie that you actually do consider what life happens beyond the actual running time of the movie. That it actually makes you consider and think a little bit. I mean, those films are fewer and fewer right now in the theaters. So that's part of the reason why I'm so grateful for this movie. When you're working on it, though, and working on essentially anything as an actor, I mean, can you usually sense that it's working, or is it always a question mark?
It's usually a question mark. For me, I don't know if that's true for all actors, but I'm so in the forest, in the middle of a scene, and overall as a performer in the production, that it's very difficult to tell how it's going to turn out. First, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to know, of course, how the other scenes that you're not in are going. And secondly, it's very difficult to know how successfully the director will be able to bring all the scenes together. So even if you have one or two good scenes, or they feel they're good scenes, first of all, they may not end up being good scenes, and secondly, even if they are, they may not mesh well with the rest of the film. It's very, very difficult to make a good movie, and I've lost count, as I know a lot of people who work in movies have, of the number of films that were this close to being very good, and just something wasn't right. Sometimes it's because the story took a funny turn. Sometimes it's because perhaps an actor wasn't cast just right. Sometimes it's because the tone was off by a couple degrees. But it's what makes a very good film all that more remarkable, because it missed so many opportunities to run off the road.
Right. And it is kind of the ultimate collaborative art form. So as you say, your work is at the mercy of other people in film. But with this film, I mean, it seemed like a pretty intimate, tight-knit group. What was the atmosphere like on this set that made it unique for Another Earth?
Well, that's a good question. There were a couple things. First, obviously Mike and Britt are new to feature films. Mike had never made a feature film before, although he had done a number of documentaries as both an editor and director. And Britt was relatively new to acting, although she and Mike had made a documentary before, so she wasn't certainly new to a set. The atmosphere on the set was both intimate and collaborative. We had very limited resources, and as a result, we had a very small crew. Mike was cinematographer, camera operator, and director. Our first AD was script supervisor. Our production designer was our wardrobe designer. And we had one person operating sound. And we had a few members of a production team who were terrific. So we had a very small crew, and we were in primarily one location. And it was a very intimate set, and Mike and Britt and I got along and get along very, very well. And all of us felt comfortable offering ideas and feedback and suggestions, and we were all focused on one thing, making the film as good as it can be. I'm happy to say that there was little, if any, ego or status involved in the process. And it made it not only a joy to work on, but, you've seen the results.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. In general, because you've been part of big projects and you've been part of a lot of more independent-spirited projects, do you as an actor feel more freedom in the independent world as an actor?
Well, that's a good question. It's difficult to generalize. I will say, I remember a comment that John Woo made during Mission Impossible 2, and he said, in Hong Kong, not a lot of money, but a lot of time. And in Hollywood, a lot of money, but not a lot of time. And that's true even more so in what's true in Hong Kong is true even more so for independent films. There's not a lot of money, but in this case, there was a good bit of time. Because we shot digitally, because this crew was so small, there was more time to focus on performance, and also because we didn't have to change locations. So we had time to run the takes through as they were scripted. We had time to improvise, and once we even stopped production for 45 minutes so we could talk about a scene that wasn't working. That's unheard of. So in that way, I feel a little more free in independent films. In studio films, there's such a rush to make your day. That's not a fair divider between independent and studio films. There often is in independent films as well. It's difficult to generalize. It's difficult to generalize. Independent films, I think most people would generally agree that they are usually a bit more character-driven. And in that sense, I feel a bit freer. Whereas in studio films, often you're at the mercy of the story, and the character is a story element. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by the acting process, and the actors that I speak to, they all have the elements of their process that is unique to them, and then the elements that are generally the same as other actors. But how much do you, when you prepare a role, like you prepared John in Another Earth, how much do you prepare, and what percentage do you kind of leave to the day you're doing it for spontaneity?
Wow. You are asking very good questions, and they are difficult to answer succinctly. And some people say they're difficult to answer at all. And I hate to start off with the same way I answered the previous question, but it's difficult to generalize. That's the best way to answer a good question like that. It's difficult to answer. It depends on the character. It depends on where I am, what I'm going through in my life. It depends on the production. if we're in a very rushed circumstance and there are not a lot of opportunities for takes, then typically I need to come in a bit more prepared, because I'm going to have 1, 2, maybe 3 takes at it, and boy, I better be damn close to good on all of them. Whereas on a film like this, there's a bit more time, and there's more time to explore. What I find, so in answer to your question as to how much I prepare and how much I leave to the moment, I don't know how to answer it other than that. I mean, it's difficult to assign a percentage, whether I say I prepare 75% of the character's reaction and behavior, and 25% I leave to the moment. I don't know how to answer it. That's an excellent question. I don't know how to answer it. I mean, I make decisions about how the character feels overall. He loves his Aunt Sally. He doesn't like his Uncle Bob. He's afraid of dogs. He loves cats. Mm-hmm. And you, or at least I, try to establish principles about the character that will be consistent throughout the film, unless obviously he encounters something that makes him change his opinion about a certain subject or his feeling about it. But then within each moment, it may be there are degrees of that principle. In other words, his Aunt Sally, whom he loves, may still do something that annoys him, as people whom we love do to us. Mm-hmm. So I guess you put up walls that represent tendencies or principles, and then within those walls, you give yourself the freedom to react in the moment.
Right. And plus, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, and I would also imagine, I mean, you do your preparation, but you don't necessarily know how you are going to play it completely 100% until you kind of feel the chemistry of the actor you're playing across from as well. That also has to be an element of surprise and spontaneity, I would think.
It is. That's absolutely true. And we're now running into a deeper actor question, and I don't know how much down the rabbit hole you want to go, but a deeper actor question which touches on the actor's technique and his belief in performance. There are some actors who prefer to have a set performance and create a character kind of and a performance kind of in and of themselves. And then there are others who make it more dependent on their partner's behavior. And I tend to be more in the latter camp. You know, famous example was Marlon Brando, very famously on Streetcar on the stage, used to tweak Jessica Tandy. Of course, this is the anecdote, that trying to get a different reaction from her from night to night, because she tended to give the same reaction in performance night to night, even though he was changing his performance. So I tend to be in the camp which makes a good bit dependent on my performer, a good bit dependent on the performance of the other actor or actors. I mean, you know, the line could be "I love you," and somebody could say it very touchingly and stroke my face, and then somebody could yell it at me angrily while they're throwing a frying pan.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have to kind of react differently to those two circumstances.
Have you done a lot of stage?
I've done some. Not a lot. I'd like to do more. I've done some work here in Los Angeles with the LA Theater Works, and I was lucky enough to play Ricky Roma in Glengarry Glen Ross a few years ago at Actors Theater of Louisville, Kentucky.
What a part!
Oh my God!
Wow!
Oh my God! It is. It's a hell of a part and a hell of a play. It's remarkable.
Well, I have to ask you a lost question, or my audience is going to kill me. But and I guess it could factor into what we were just discussing. I mean, you have stage experience, film experience. When you're on a hit TV show, is it kind of a different level of exposure? Do people feel like they kind of know you more intimately because they watch you at home on their TV?
Well, that's a very good question. And I don't know if I'm qualified to answer for everyone, but I think based on my limited experience, I would say yes. I think it's in for the very reason that you mentioned. Because they've seen you in the living room, it feels more intimate to them, and this is unconscious. And they feel they have a better idea of who you are. Also because they see you every week, and because they see you in one role, a single role. And I think those two additional elements also add to their sense of familiarity.
In terms of preparation for a TV show, because working on a film, you have the entire script that you can work from. On a TV series, you get one episode, one kind of character moment at a time. Is that challenging, preparing a character when you don't know where it's going?
Well, generally in television, you have a pretty good idea. Lost, as with so many other things, was the exception. If you've talked to any other actors on the show, I know several other actors have had the experience I have, which is they learn something about their character and they're learning it along with the audience. I had no idea even with a surgeon. I heard it all over my television like everyone else. And, of course, my mind begins casting back over the different scenes I've played, hoping that nothing I've done contradicts that aspect of the character. So, in answer to that question, it's generally it's not too difficult if you have a sense of who the character is, because if the show is on the air, it means it's successful, and if it's successful, they don't want to tamper with it too much. And that means they don't want the characters to change too much. That's one of the challenges in television, is that, and Lost, as I said, was an exception, is that the more successful it is, the less successful it is creatively. It's one of the challenges in television drama. The very nature of drama is change. Characters experience... hold on a second. I actually hit the speaker button. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
The very nature of drama is change. Characters experience events which change them. But procedural shows on television, the characters don't change, mostly. Sometimes in some shows, they used to change. Hill Street and shows like that were very good about that. But that's a challenge that television drama faces. And, of course, if it's successful, the executives don't want it to change because they've got a winning formula. And so if you're on a show, generally you have a sense of who the character is, and he won't change much from week to week. So preparing for that is not too difficult. On Lost, every rule went out the window. You were hanging on for dear life.
Yeah. What a phenomenal show that was.
It was a lot of fun.
Now, I see several upcoming projects, and I want you to tell me what you're particularly excited about, but you have to include FDR American Badass. I have to know what this is.
Oh, my gosh. Well, so I'm in a few different things. I have a very small role in that. I play a doctor. It's made by a group of filmmakers who make they've made several low-budget comedies. I was in one a couple years ago called Darnell Dawkins, I think, Mouth Guitar Legend or something like that. And it is about FDR being a fighter of werewolves. And Barry Bostwick is in it, whom you may remember from Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's some terrific actors in it, and that's a lot of fun. In the film The Warrior's Heart, I play a lacrosse coach with a couple of the young actors from the Twilight series. And in Edwin Boyd, I play... Edwin Boyd is about an infamous Canadian bank robber from 1950. He used to dress up in the manner of some of the dashing old Hollywood actors like Errol Flynn. And he escaped from jail a couple times, and I play a policeman who was tracking him over the years.
Oh, wow.
And then Static, I have a small role as a real estate agent, and that's a low-budget 3D horror film.
Oh, wow. So each project, I'm sure, brings about its own challenges. Do you feel like you're at a good place in your career where you're kind of exercising kind of different muscles with each project that comes about?
That's a good question. You know, one of the terrifying, frustrating, and thrilling parts of this business is just like it's difficult to know when you're shooting a film where you are. In other words, whether or not you're on the right path, whether or not it's going to be any good. It's very difficult to know sometimes in the middle of your career. You know, before we got into Sundance, if you had asked me last November, I would have said, you know, last year was a bit slow. I feel I'm a bit stuck. The business is going through a very tough time. We're losing eyeballs to video games and the internet. Fewer films are being made. It's more competitive. There's a compression of salaries. And then Another Earth gets into Sundance, and Fox Searchlight buys us. In the turn of a screw, suddenly things are looking up. And I may be receiving opportunities that I didn't before because people see that my character in Another Earth is not the sort of character they know me for. So in answer to your question, it's very difficult for me to know where I am. I mean, look, I like to work, and I never know where my next job is coming from. I feel as if I've exercised some good judgment. I pass a certain number of projects, pass on certain projects that don't feel, I don't know how to put it, I don't feel a connection to for some reason. Sometimes it's an artistic reason, sometimes it's a moral reason or ethical reason. And so I feel as if I'm making good choices, but, you know, it's one of the reasons that people become addicted to this sort of business is that it's thrilling and terrifying, never knowing where your next job may come from. I might not work for 6 months, and then I could run into a casting director at the grocery store, as I did a couple months ago, and she could say, "Oh, I gotta tell the my director and producer, I just realized you're perfect for this role." And that's how crazy this business can be. Is it every day when you walk out your front door or pick up your phone, another opportunity could be lying in wait for you, ready to club you, and you have no idea. And so I feel very fortunate. My overriding reaction is one of gratitude that I am able to continue working, and that I've had the opportunity to work on shows like Lost and In the Bedroom and Another Earth. You know, I mean, I've worked on a number of other good movies that didn't get picked up at festivals and didn't get a theatrical release. You know, a very good movie is The Burrowers that Lionsgate made, J.T. Petty directed, with Clancy Brown and others, and we went right to video. It's a horror western, and it's a good movie. And, you know, for whatever reason, it either never caught on with audiences or it was never given the opportunity to. So even movies that a lot of audience members don't know that I've been in or have never heard of, I've been proud to be a part of.